If you're looking for ways to improve the quality and professionalism of your videos, lighting might be the key. In this video, I'll walk you through everything you need to know to light your talking head videos like a pro. Let's get into it. Hello creators, I'm Ben Tolson from Podia, where we empower creators like you to make a living doing what you love. To test the theory that proper lighting technique can improve your video quality in almost any setting, I've set up in my garage. I'm going to take you through the 3-point lighting technique, how to set your lights up, light and color composition, and how all of these things together can help you take an ordinary shot like this and turn it into something that looks like this. Huh? What do you think? The basics of 3-point lighting. Before we jump in, let me tell you what 3-point lighting is and how it works. A 3-point lighting setup consists of the key light, which is the main light on the subject, a fill light, which offsets some of the shadows produced by the key light, and a backlight or rim light, which creates a rim of light on the subject. You can also use background and accent lights to make your shot a little more interesting. I'll take these one at a time and walk you through how to set them up for the best results. The key light. The key light is the most important light in your setup, so we're going to spend a bit more time on it than the others. Its job is to light the subject while also using shadow to create depth. It's usually set up facing the subject at a 45-degree angle so that it mostly lights up one side of the subject's face. The key light can be light from a window or light from a professional studio light. The qualities you're looking for from this light are brightness, softness, and adjustability. Let's talk about those 3 qualities. Brightness. The brighter a light source is, the less your camera has to compensate. For most DSLR cameras, increasing the ISO will allow more light into your shot, but it also makes your image less sharp and more grainy. My goal with the key light is to be able to set the ISO on my camera as low as possible. You want the light on your face to be as bright as possible without losing color in your face. If you get sections that look blown out, you may need to dial it back a bit. The Aputure Lightstorm C120D is a popular model that provides plenty of light, but it can be on the pricey end, nearing $1,000 after stands and accessories. For between $100 and $200, you can buy a 3-point lighting kit on Amazon, but you may have to supplement your key light to make it bright enough. I use a modified light tree with 3 daylight CF bulbs and an adjustable LED light. This allows me to bring the ISO on my camera down into the 100 to 200 range, which makes for a much nicer image. Softness. Now you've got a nice bright light, but you have a new problem. Without anything to filter the light, it can cast a harsh shadow on your face and background. To fix this, we want to put something in front of the light that still allows it to pass through, but diffuses it. For my setup, I have a light umbrella with thin white fabric. This softens the shadows on my face and almost completely removes my shadow from the background. Sometimes you can use window light without any kind of filter because the light coming through the window is already being diffused. If you don't have a light umbrella or some other kind of filter, you could use a thin white bedsheet. Adjustability. When we talk about adjustability, we could be talking about adjusting the brightness of the light or the color temperature. Some lights come with dials that allow you to adjust how bright or dim your light is. This can be really useful if you've already lowered your camera's ISO as much as possible and need to remove some light. If the brightness isn't adjustable, you can also move the light source closer or further away as needed. Color temperature ranges from warm or yellow tones to cool or blue tones. The most natural color temperature is generally around 5500 K, which is the standard color temperature for most professional bulbs. Depending on the room you're in, you may need to adjust the light to be warmer or cooler. If you can't adjust this on your light, you may be able to adjust the white balance on your camera. So we've covered a lot about the key light, but before we move on, I want to tell you about a positioning method used by professionals to produce something called the Rembrandt triangle. The Rembrandt triangle is a feature found in many of Rembrandt's paintings, where the light illuminates a triangle on the side of the face opposite the key light. To achieve this look, keep your light at a 45-degree angle and raise your light above head level, pointing down toward the subject. You may need to play around with the exact positioning, but this technique adds a really nice effect that makes our lighting look more professional. The next light we're going to cover is the fill light. The fill light is usually set up at a 45-degree angle on the other side of the subject from the key light. Its job is to soften the shadows created by the key light while being careful not to remove the shadows completely in order to maintain depth. For your fill light, you can use an artificial light or you can use some kind of reflector to bounce the light from the key light to the subject. For my setup, I've actually got an old poster board from a report one of my kids did on Henry Ford. You'll notice as I bring it closer, the light from my key light illuminates more of my face. And if I take it away completely, you can see how the shadows on this side of my face become more harsh. Again, the goal is not necessarily to remove the shadows completely, but to soften them so the shot looks more natural. Although if you're going for a more dramatic look, you may lower your fill light or take it out altogether. Next up is the backlight. The backlight or rim light is usually set up behind the subject opposite the key light. It's usually placed high enough to be out of the shot and facing down toward the subject to create a subtle rim of light to separate the subject from the background. Directional lights work best because you can focus more of the light on a single part of your shot. If you don't have a directional light or spotlight, you can create this effect by taping a piece of black cardstock together to make a funnel and point your light through it. Background and accent lights. In addition to the three main lights, you can make your shot more interesting by adding some background and accent lights. Background lights can serve as both functional lights to make the background a bit brighter in the case that it's too dark, and as accent lights to add visual interest to your shot. Background lights can be studio lights, lamps, or even windows. Accent lights don't necessarily serve to brighten your shot, but are there to add visual interest. Accent lights can be lamps, colored LED lights or strips, or even light from accessories like neon signs, clocks, or other electronics. When adding these in, you just want to make sure not to make your shot too busy and not to overpower your main lights so that the focus will stay on the subject. For example, if you've got a window in the background and it's really bright outside, you might draw a curtain that dims the light but still allows some of it through. Now that we've covered three-point lighting, we're going to quickly go over two more aspects of lighting that will give your shot extra polish. The first is light composition. Everything that we've talked about so far can be considered light composition, but we're going to focus on two specific elements: light ratios and lights and darks. Light ratios. In some cases, light is measured in stops or brightness. It's not important to know how to measure stops as long as you understand that each part of your shot has a different level of brightness. The ratio that we want to achieve has to do with the difference between the light on the key light side of our face, the light on the fill light side of our face, and the light in the background. The key light side of our face is definitely going to be brighter than the fill light side of our face, but we want the brightness of our background to be somewhere in between the two. You can judge this by sight by reviewing your footage, or you can bring your footage into a program like Adobe Premiere Pro where you can look at the brightness based on waveforms. As I look at the waveform here, I can see that my background is about right in the middle between the fill light side of my face and the key light side of my face. Lights and darks. Light is great for creating a sense of depth, but it can also be shaped to provide contrast. Because of my setup, I'm breaking my own rule, but generally you want the background on the side of your key light to be darker than the background on the side of your fill light. You see, I've got it backwards. This creates the most contrast and is more visually pleasing. And finally, let's talk about color composition. When you think about light, you might not automatically think about color, but composing a shot with the right colors can make a big difference. Two aspects of color composition we want to consider are color contrast and complementary colors. Color contrast. One of the main jobs of lighting is to separate the subject from the background, but if the color of your background is too similar to the color of your skin or your clothing, it can take contrast away from your shot. Try to use a background that contrasts well so that your shot maintains plenty of depth. Complementary colors. Another way to add more visual interest is to use complementary colors in your background. I used a set of LED lights with near complementary colors to make my background a bit more visually pleasing. It's a little touch that can go a long way. I know this was a lot to go over, and it's a lot to remember, especially if you're new to lighting. I put these techniques in order of importance, so you could start with just the key light and already see an improvement. Take these as slow as you need to and keep practicing, and before you know it, people will be raving about how professional your videos look. Which of these techniques are you going to try out in your videos? Leave a comment and let us know. If you found this video helpful and you want more content like this, click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you'll be sure not to miss any future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.